Thank you. Okay, welcome everyone to this. This is a special NCAC membership meeting. The meeting tonight has one agenda item on it, and it's informational only. The purpose of the meeting is to allow community members to hear and read information advocating for and against ballot measure, if I have the number right, 29183. Which will be voted on by registered county voters in the upcoming May election. The ballot measure is to increase the county transient lodging tax from 10% to 14%. No action items tonight, no votes, informational only. So I'll kind of go over the agenda here in a minute. We'll go ahead and introduce the officers from the NCAC that are present this evening. I'm Mark Everett, the chair. We can go down the list here. I see Nancy and
Nancy Vandell, bylaws subcommittee chairperson.
Yeah.
Michael Beachley, NCAC parliamentarian.
Who else is here?
Is that for the board?
I think
That's it for the board.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I always have to scroll right here. I can't see everybody. I don't want to miss anybody. Okay, thanks. So we've allocated 1 hour for the topic this evening. Pretty simple, straightforward agenda, 15 minutes of time for Mary, Board of County Commissioner Bell, to present the for position for the ballot measure. And then we've got allocated 15 minutes of time for an opposing view towards the ballot measure. And that's and then we've got 30 minutes of Q&A for the community. And so the intent of the evening is to present the for, present the opposition to it, and real simply just answer questions. So it's a 1 hour meeting once we get started here on the agenda. The NCAC officers and committee chairs take no position on this ballot measure. And we can't, and the NCAC is serving only to facilitate this forum for this evening. The presenter for the ballot measure is Board of County Commissioner Mary Faith Bell. And with that, Commissioner Bell, I'll just turn it over for you, and you've got the floor for 15 minutes. And if you don't use that much time, that's fine. We'll move on to the next part. So.
Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for being here tonight. I'm grateful for the opportunity to communicate with you. I'm grateful for your service to the community as a CAC. If we commissioners have been moving around in the county and talking to city councils about this, and so it's just a great opportunity for us to be able to check in and communicate with folks like yourself who live in an unincorporated area. So thanks for scheduling this special meeting for this topic. And I just really wanted to tell you what we're doing and why. We have, as you said, proposed to voters to increase the transient lodging tax. Short history: the transient lodging tax was approved by voters, the countywide tax, in 2013 at 10%. It hasn't been raised since then. The reason that we're considering that it would be helpful to us to increase it now is to address a budget deficit. And the budget deficit is the result of declining state timber revenue. So we're approaching a budgetary crisis, where it may not be a crisis this year, but there are projections that if we don't figure out how to generate revenue to make up for the loss of timber revenue, that we will be in a crisis situation maybe as soon as 2027. So this wouldn't solve our problem entirely, but it would certainly help. So where we're lacking is in the general fund. And because we have some departments that are special revenue departments that are self-supporting and they're okay. So where we're lacking it is in the general fund. And the biggest expense in the general fund is the sheriff's office. So if voters choose to pass this, what we would do with the revenue over which we have discretion is apply 80% of that to the sheriff's office budget. And that wouldn't, unfortunately, allow us to grow the sheriff's office. We think we could certainly use more help in the sheriff's office, but what it would do is stabilize current service levels. So that's what we're after right now, is stabilizing current service levels. The reason we think it's appropriate, thematic really, is because there's a tremendous strain on the sheriff's office and on public safety in general from visitors. We're grateful for visitors. We support the tourism industry. It's become, in a relatively short amount of time, it's become a very significant leg of our economic stool. We need it. We support it. We want it to be successful. So what this would do is enable visitors to better support the sheriff's office. So if you think about, we all pay property taxes, presumably, if we own property, and the property taxes support the sheriff's office for a county of 27,000 people. But as you folks know, in Neskowin, in the summer, it can be easily triple that. So we're providing a lot of services for people that there is no compensation for. So this is one way to support the general fund and support the sheriff's office, and that's the intent. So something that's interesting about the transient lodging tax is that the legislature has determined that 70% of transient lodging tax revenue will be spent on tourism facilities or promotions. And the governing bodies that establish the tax have discretion over 30%. So of the revenue that we would bring in with the new 4%, we have discretion over 30% of it. The 30% would go 80% of that to the sheriff's office budget, 10% to emergency management, which I'm passionate about because we have a small emergency management department, and we're trying to plan to do preparedness efforts for not only our communities, not only all of you, but for also all of the visitors who might be here when there's a disaster. So 10% of the new revenue would go to support the emergency management department, and 10% of it will go to a new fund that we need to establish for maintenance and repair of the emergency radio system that voters voted to support in a bond in the last election. So the construction money, we have all the engineering, construction money, et cetera, from that bond, but we'll need a fund to maintain and repair it. So 10% that way. The other 70%, there are tremendous opportunities for how to invest it, and Tillamook County has done a really good job of investing that 70% in tourism facilities that are of benefit to the community and also to visitors when they're here. So for instance, the amazing amount of work that's been done in Pacific City has been I don't know if you're probably aware of some of the work that's been done in Pacific City that has been funded by transient lodging tax. And we've moved that money all over the county. So in most areas of the county, there have been significant investments in transient lodging tax that we simply couldn't have done otherwise. So that 70% has been a tremendous boon to the community, and we're very excited about the opportunities for how to invest new revenue should voters support this. We heard from when we planned this, we set up some town hall meetings with the short-term rental and lodging industry, with owners and operators. And we heard from people about what was problematic for them, what they were concerned about. Initially, we were considering raising it 5%. We heard from people that 5% was too much, so we reduced it to 4. We heard from people that they thought that doing it all at once was too much, so we split it up. So if voters approve this, it will increase by 2% in September of 2025, and then an additional 2% in the next fiscal year in July of 2026. And we heard from people that they were concerned because they already had contracts for this summer. So rather than started at the beginning of this fiscal year, we moved the start date up to September. So we learned a lot in the process. We listened, we adjusted our plan, and we feel good about moving it forward to voters. We feel like it is appropriate, it's fair. And I think I will just pause there.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
you.
Appreciate that. And you're under time, so I want to recognize one other person I forget to introduce, and that's Sarah Absher, Director of Community Development. I think I saw Sarah here and said hi to her. So welcome, Sarah, as well.
And I forgot to mention Susan Schoenberg is here, and she's chair of the
Okay, there you go.
Outreach
Hi,
Task
Susan.
Force.
Welcome, Susan. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so that was a statement for of position for the ballot measure. On the other side of that, we have information that's been provided by Oregon Coast Hosts. It's a series. I think there are 3 links to information that was given to us. We weren't able to, they weren't able to secure a presenter this evening to discuss that, but they do have an informational sheet that I understand is 1 sheet of paper that if we could, I don't know if you could put that on the screen, Nancy, so folks could see that. Is that possible?
You know, I'm having a weird thing when I come up to share that I'm not seeing
Okay.
my screen. Hang on,
Okay. Okay.
give me a moment because I did
No
download
rush.
it.
Yeah.
I've never had share happen where I don't see
Yeah.
my screen.
I
It's
think the
coming
thought
up
is
as filter
okay.
unknown.
Okay.
Well,
Um,
let me see. Oh, I have to. Okay, I see what's happening. Sorry, it'll be just a moment.
okay. Okay. While
If-
you're
if
while you're
they're
finding
links-
it, oh, go ahead.
If
I've
they're
got it
links,
here.
if they're links, it would be good to put it in the chat so we could,
Oh,
It
okay.
is. It's in the chat.
Okay. Okay.
I had a little Google nightmare, and so I'm having to set up. Okay.
Okay. It looks like maybe Hillary's put it in the chat. Is that right? It looks, if I'm seeing this.
Yes, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt
Okay.
the chat since I had that link.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Hillary. So it's in the chat, and it was, I took a look at it earlier today, but for those of you that have not taken a look at it, I thought maybe what we would just, I mean, you can take a look at that and read that for yourself.
It's up now. It's up now.
Okay, great, there it is.
Sorry
Thank
about
you.
that hiccup.
Okay, so there's I'll give folks time to take a look at that. It's 15 minutes for each side, so we'll just pause and let folks have some time to read that if you have not read it or want to review it again.
Can people read it, or do you want me to make it larger?
It's small for me, Nancy, but I'm old, so there you go.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Mhm. Let me know when you want me to scroll, people.
Okay.
Okay, Jody, thank you.
Joni, you have a new responsibility. We're taking note.
What, to enlarge the typeface?
No, no, to tell us
When to
when it's
scroll.
time to roll.
When to scroll.
No.
Is everybody done? May I stop sharing? Any
Are folks
objection
done?
to-
Any objection to that?
No, not from me.
Okay, I don't see any. Okay. So thank you. Thank you for that information. So I think with that, I mean, it's going quicker than I thought it would go. Let me see. Yeah, okay. But with that, I think we'll open the floor for questions from those who are present this evening that want to ask questions.
But Tom Prahodich has raised his hand.
Okay, Tom, there you go.
I'm doing
And
it.
if you'd also like to
Yeah.
speak, you're welcome to put it in the chat, people, and I'm
Yeah,
monitoring the
yeah,
chat.
that'd be a good way to do it. Yeah. Go ahead, Tom.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm on my phone. I've never done this before. Commissioner Bell, thanks. I'm Tom Prahodich. I'm glad you're here. Appreciate your time. Have you all considered what other options are available to you if this ballot measure fails? To the extent that that's public at all, if you could discuss it. If you can't, then we understand. But
Thank you. Yes, we're working with a financial consultant and we're looking at several different options. And what I can tell you, I guess I don't want to share half-baked ideas at this point. So what I can tell you is that the approach will be a basket of eggs sort of approach. This, if it passes, won't solve our problem entirely, but it will certainly it would help. It would help a lot. And it will provide us with enough room to continue to develop other sources of revenue. One thing that's very interesting that's new to us is the idea that we might be able to use revenue from the Parks Department. Tillamook County Parks is a special revenue department, which means it's not funded by the general fund at all. And so they operate as a business. They're entirely self-supporting. So we have been under the impression forever that we couldn't just move money from the special revenue funds into the general fund. So what appears to be true, and it's our newest commissioner, Paul Fournier, who came up with this idea, and then we checked it out with our auditor, and the auditor says, yes, it seems like you probably could do that, is we might be able to take some of the money in the Parks Department beginning fund balance, move that into the general fund, and then replace it with TLT, because from the 70%, because the TLT in the 70% has to be spent on tourism facilities or promotion. But Tillamook County Parks is entirely a tourist facility. So it's a matter of moving money, but it would be very helpful because Parks has some money that they want to invest in expansion and maintenance, repair, etc. And we have some money in the TLT fund. So we would, if we moved it that way, it could be very helpful. So I'm hopeful about that. And we haven't decided if voters say no to this, we haven't decided if we would come right back in November or not. So that's a possibility also. And we are encouraged because we're working with a consultant who has over 50 years of experience in managing cities, and now he's doing consulting work. And he's just such a pleasure to work with. He gets such a wealth of knowledge, and he has worked with other cities and counties who are in the same position we're in now. Over time, the revenue is shrinking and the expenses are growing, and so there are other opportunities, like he's talking about us doing a case study for fees, and to have every department do an assessment on the fees that they charge. You know, in some cases where Sarah's looks at her fees fairly regularly, and I think we passed the increase maybe this year, but in some cases, some departments, it hasn't been done for years. And so he said, you know, if you get an appropriate fee study done for every department, and then raise them incrementally a little bit every year with the cost of doing business, that can make a huge difference. It's a small thing, but it can make a huge difference. So there are a number of ideas we're looking at, and we're hopeful. It's our goal. It's interesting to be in this position at this time, because previously I used to work for the Headlight Herald. I was a reporter, and then I was the editor. And so I've been following the county budget for at least 15 years. And previously, the budget was just reactive. The county took in the money it took in, and then they reacted to that, and then figured out what they were going to do. And some years the budget was fat, some years it was lean. They adjusted on the fly. And so this really is the first time that I'm aware of that a Board of County Commissioners here has said, we want to be proactive, and we want to figure out how to generate revenue, because we think that the services that we provide are important. And there isn't any place that we think, oh, the public could do without that. So that's where we're starting. We want to replace the revenue.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wyatt has
Other-
his hand up, Mark.
Okay, who is it? Go
Wyatt
ahead.
Angelo.
Wyatt, go ahead, Wyatt, sorry.
Commissioner, I appreciate the fact that the county is desirous of adding revenue, and I appreciate the efforts. But the way this is structured strikes me as a little bit self-serving and a little bit selfish. Allocation of 80% or 70% of this to the sheriff's department kind of neglects and ignores the fact that other emergency agencies in the county, first responding agencies, are far more impacted by the tourism trade in Tillamook County than the sheriff's department is. They get none of this revenue. Lastly, there's a question, and that is, does the county maintain control over that 70% that it's going to retain to do with it as it pleases, or that 30%, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to misquote you. That 30% to do with it as it pleases on a year-by-year basis, rather than committing this formula to the voters.
Are you asking, Wyatt, if we might change over time how we spend the 30%? Is that what you meant? We could. It's written into the ordinance. We developed an ordinance in order to take this to the voters, and it's written into the ordinance. The formula that I described is in the ordinance.
Will it be written into the ballot question?
It is. Yes. The ordinance informs the ballot question. That doesn't mean it couldn't be changed in the future. It could with an ordinance update, an ordinance revision. But getting back to your initial point about other emergency responders, that's an excellent point, and I'm glad you brought it up. It's well worth talking about, because you're absolutely right that the fire districts in particular are desperate for revenue, and there is a big impact on the fire districts and from visitors. I don't know that it's bigger than the sheriff's office, but in any case, it's true of all first responders. And so we do care about that. What we would bring in the 30%, it isn't enough to solve the problem of the fire districts. So, and the county doesn't fund the fire districts. The fire districts are special districts on their own tax base. So we've talked about it. When we first started talking about this, about raising TLT, people asked, would some of it go to the fire districts? But we wouldn't bring in enough to take care of the problems of the fire districts. So, and I'm repeating myself now to say that the county doesn't fund the fire districts. So, going back to the 80s when Ballot Measure 5 happened. For those of you who lived here, you probably remember Ballot Measure 5 capped property taxes where they were in the 80s. And so the result of that, one of the results of that is the good thing is that our property taxes don't go up exponentially. The assessed value can only go up 3% a year, and that's because of Ballot Measure 5. And then one of the things that happened as a result of all of that is that the reason we have on our tax statements, we have a whole list of things we fund with taxes, and we have so many special districts, is that that's the only way to get funding for them, is to go to the voters and say, you know, we need a special district to fund the fire service, for example, or the water districts or the school districts, et cetera. That's why we have so many things on our property taxes. And so the voters have already approved a tax rate for the fire districts. The fire districts could go back to the voters and ask for an additional tax rate, but that's difficult. And you know, we know they don't even have staff to do that kind of thing. So one of the solutions that I know Senator Weber is working on is she's proposed changing the 70-30 split to something else. And the number has been up in the air, maybe 50-50, so that some of that money could go toward fire districts. So I hope that in time, the legislature will change the 70-30 split. It's very important that we continue to invest in tourism facilities and promotion, invest in the industry. It's very important. So I don't know what the split should be, but what's perfectly clear is that the impact to tourism, especially to rural tourism counties, is tremendous, whereas that's not the case in urban places. So yeah, so I'm hopeful that there will be a different solution that will work for the fire districts. And also, you know, I'm going out on a limb saying this here, but a number of people have said to me, why isn't there a countywide fire district with multiple stations? And I don't know if they would agree to that. But it seems like there could be great opportunity in sharing resources among all these smaller fire districts. So I think those conversations will happen over time because a lot of them are really struggling.
Can I take that as a no then?
If the question is, would we use the 30% to fund the fire districts? I think that would be a no. Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Barbara Gordon has a couple of questions in the chat. Barbara, do you want to ask them or do you want me to read them? I'll go ahead and read them. She's asking, could you ask her, please, if A, there is any effort at the state level to amend the 70% break to something less? And B, how do tourists increase the sheriff's work or is there data to support this?
Yes, there is effort at the state level to amend the 70-30 split. I think you saw in the paper from Oregon Coast Hosts that we all looked at that there has been work on that in this legislative session. And I should have looked before this meeting tonight, but I didn't, so I apologize. But I'll follow up with Sarah and she can follow up with you about whether or not there was a bill to amend the 70-30 split and in the House. And as of last week, it was maybe this is a silly description, but it was barely alive. It was maybe alive. There was some hope for it. It wasn't completely dead. And somebody was championing it, and it might get changed into something else, or it might get tucked into another bill, but it wasn't completely off the table. It wasn't completely dead. So we were very hopeful about that last week, and I haven't followed up this week to find out whether or not that would be moving forward at all. But it's been tried before and hasn't been successful. But I think what's growing is the awareness that the 70-30 split is disproportional at least for rural tourism counties. And Well, tourists increase the sheriff's work there, and yes, there's a lot of data to support that. If the data comes in the form of tickets written, people incarcerated, people who search and rescue. You know, a majority of the search and rescue cases are with visitors. So there's a tremendous impact, and there is data.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. Other questions?
Oh, looks like there's a new message. Susan
Okay.
Schomburg has a question. Do you want to
Okay.
ask it, Susan, or would you want me to? Oh, you're muted. I'll ask it. What percentage of our property taxes goes toward the sheriff's office budget?
That, I'm sorry, I don't remember the number of the sheriff's office budget. I wish I did. It's a great question. Sarah, I don't know if you can quickly look that up online, or if you can't, it's okay, and don't worry, and I will get that. I'm gonna make notes for myself now.
Commissioner,
Sure.
I'll see if I can find that real quick. Hang on
Thank
just a
you.
sec. Thank you.
You're welcome. And if we can't find it quickly, then I'll certainly get that information to you. And I'll get you the update on whether or not the TLT at the state, whether or not that bill is moving forward.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Other questions?
There's nothing else in the chat.
Is there? Okay.
Hillary raised her hand.
Oh, Hillary?
Mhm.
Thank you, Commissioner Bell, for being here tonight. I appreciate it. There's been some good discussion, and that's always nice to hear. I like hearing the other ideas. I had a couple questions. I've expressed some concern about the math involved with this. It's a 40% increase and not a 4% increase. When you're going from 10% to 14%, the tax increase that the guests will pay is a 40% increase. And the other thing I was going to ask is, could you maybe give us like a ballpark idea of, I don't know, for every $1,000 of TLT that comes in, how much of that will actually go to the sheriff's office?
Yes. Thank you, Hillary. There's a lot of talk about this being a 40% increase and 4%. And the truth is that it's both. So going from 10 to 14, that's 4%. So, and 4 is 40% of 10. So you're right, and I'm right. It's 40% and it's 4%. It's both of those things. The numbers are that currently TLT, we think that the increase, if voters pass the 4% increase, that would bring in about $3 million a year, of which the general fund would reap close to $1 million. So something like that. And then so the sheriff's office would get maybe 800,000, which would be enough to stabilize the budget.
So out of $1,000 of TLT, how much goes to tourism and how much goes to the sheriff? Could you break it down a little bit more for us?
70% of TLT is invested in tourism facilities and tourism promotion. 70%.
Yes, I understand that part. I'm asking about what the sheriff gets, because I think it's a little hard. I keep hearing 80% for the sheriff, but it's my understanding is it's 80% of the 30% of the new 40% tax increase. And so when you get to that little bit, it actually works out to be, when we crunch the numbers, like $69 for the sheriff.
No.
$700 for tourism. And so that's why I'm asking. We haven't heard anything from the county with firm numbers on that. So we have to go by our math and what's in the ordinance.
Well, here's how we figured it out. I have this.
Okay.
No,
I figured it out. Okay.
Okay. How we figured it out is based on currently, the current 10% tax brings in 7.5 million. So we would assume then that 4% more would be about 3 million. So of that 3 million, 70% will be invested in tourism facilities and promotion, and 30% in the general fund. So that 30% will be about $1 million. And the sheriff's office, that 80% of the 30%, I'm sorry, it's a little confusing. I should have a slide for this. The 80% would go to the sheriff's office, and that'll be about $800,000. And presumably it would grow over time as tourism continues to grow, which it has year after year. So the $800,000 in the sheriff's office budget would stabilize the budget for the sheriff's office.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. So that raises a great question and something I didn't cover before. Would you like a little more information?
Sure.
Originally, for the original 10%, what the Board of County Commissioners in 2014, some of you probably knew them, Mark Labhart, Tim Josie, and now I'm drawing a blank on, it may have been Chuck Hurleman in 2014. What they committed to do was use the entire 30% on the roads department. And the reason was that Tillamook County had the worst roads in the state. They're ranked. They were 36 of 36. And the reason that our roads were so terrible was the declining federal timber revenues starting sometime in the 90s, really, when there were all the environmental lawsuits and the federal forest got shut down, essentially. So the roads department used to be well funded with federal timber revenue, and that dried up. So the road department had a crisis in the budget. And the Board of Commissioners in 2013, when they were talking to voters about establishing TLT, said that if you vote for this, we will guarantee we will put the entire 30%, all of the discretionary income into the roads department, and over time that will fix the budget. And that's been totally successful. So we have no intention of changing that because it's totally successful. The roads department budget is whole, and the reason it's whole is TLT, is the 30% from the 10%. So if voters approve this, that will stay exactly as it is. And there's been some suggestion by ORLA, Oregon Restaurant Lodging Association. If you follow the link on their paper, they talk about, the county doesn't need this because they could just move the 30% they currently have to fix their general fund problem. But the reason that's a bad idea is that it would just create it would recreate the crisis in the road department budget. And ultimately it would cost you more, because if we did that, if we moved the money out of the road department into the general fund to solve this problem, we would have again a crisis in the road department fund, for which we'd have no way of fixing it other than to come to voters and ask for a bond. So if you read that like, oh, they don't need this, they can just do that, it's not accurate.
So we have another question from Barbara Gordon. So of this extra 4% being collected, is it being subjected to the 70/30%?
Yes.
Okay. Other questions for the commissioner?
I guess as someone who doesn't live in Tillamook County, I have a question. Why are the timber revenues going down?
That's a great question. So the state timber revenues have been, over time, they've gone up and down. But now they are going down, and they'll go consistently down. And the reason is because of the Habitat Conservation Plan that the Board of Forestry approved last year. The Habitat Conservation Plan is a 70-year plan to conserve areas of the Oregon State Forest, which includes the Tillamook Forest. And And so that means whole areas will be conserved for the next 70 years. And that will significantly decrease our timber revenues because they'll just be, you know, they will not be available for harvest.
Is that related to FEMA, the FEMA situation, or totally
No.
independent of that? Okay. Candace has her hand up. Mark?
Yeah.
Oh, go
Oh.
ahead, Candace.
Yeah, I had a quick question about the road department. So they're fully funded now and they're safe. Are the roads in the village in Neskowin eligible to get fixed by that fund or not? Because the roads there are really horrible, and they have been horrible since I moved here 9 years ago. And they seem to have volunteers who just fix the potholes every year. So do they qualify to get any roadworks done in the village?
That is a good question, Candace, and I will ask it of the Director of Public Works. The situation is that there are county roads that the county is responsible for. I just lost, oh, there you are. Your square moved. I lost you for a second. There are county roads that the county is responsible for, and there are private roads that the county is not responsible for. And then there are local access roads that the county is also not responsible for. And so what often happens is that local access roads are maintained by people who live on them. And so I don't know specifically if how many roads in the village of Neskowin are county roads, but I'll find out. I'll ask the question. And it's really helpful if on more than one occasion, multiple occasions actually, people have complained to me about a particular road. I've been able to go to the Director of Public Works and say, hey, what about this road? And no, he didn't know. He didn't know. If it's a county road and they just don't know because nobody's reported that there's a problem, then they don't know. You know, it's a very long, big county. And so if you're talking about county roads, it will be very helpful for you to let them know, or let me know and I'll let him know. Because sometimes they don't realize there's a problem until somebody tells them.
Yeah, maybe I'm guessing maybe they're local access roads. That's probably why they're not getting addressed. Okay, thank you.
So there are a couple of questions in the chat with some math. So I don't know if it's better, Commissioner Bell, for you to look at the chat, or if I should try to read it.
I can
Barbara
see it.
Okay.
You can see it. Okay.
I can see it.
Okay.
So in $1,000 in TLT revenue, 70% goes to tourism facilities and 30% goes to it at the discretion of the county. And the 30% is not 69. The 30% would be 300.
Okay. So there is a little math in the chat for those of you who can look at. It looks like Barbara Gordon's done some math, and then Hillary's done some math. But the numbers look different, but there's that there for folks to look at. And if you have questions about those, Commissioner you might address them to the Commissioner this time, but let's see. Okay.
I wonder if there
Yeah.
seems to be some differences. Is there maybe a way that is there something on your website, Commissioner Bell, that would spell out these different calculations?
There is, and actually we produced this flyer, and I'll just read to you this section on funding. If approved by voters, how will the new funds be spent? The current 10% TLT revenue will continue to be spent as it is now, with 30% going to the roads department. The 4% increase may result in approximately $3 million annually. By law, 70%, which is 2.1 million of 3, will be spent on tourism-related facilities, projects, and promotion. And of the 30%, which is 900,000, over which the county has discretionary spending, an anticipated 80%, which is 720,000, will be directed to the Tillamook County Sheriff's Office budget to help maintain current service levels. 10%, 90,000, will help support the emergency management department, and the final 10%, another 90,000, will help maintain the county's new public safety radio system. So of this, if voters approve this increase, we anticipate that the 720,000 a year will be directed to the sheriff's office.
And Barbara Gordon has her hand up. Mark.
Okay, Barbara, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for answering my questions, and my typing in the chat didn't work too well. I tried with math, that's not too easy. I guess I'm still confused because I'm working on a simple $1,000 income is what's coming in. 70% currently goes towards tourism and 30% is currently going towards the roads department, is what you're saying?
Yes.
And then if you increase it, so now you've got 14% coming in instead of 10% coming in, or 12% and then 14.
Mhm.
Doesn't make a difference. So now instead of collecting a 10%, you're now collecting 14%.
Mhm.
So on $1,000, you would be getting $140 is the way I understand it, if I'm doing my math right. Currently, 10% of 1,000 is $100. So now you're going to get 140 in. But when you're describing the 4%, what I keep hearing is 70% will go to tourism, 30% will stay with the roads, and the extra 4% will be broken down, of which 80% is going to the sheriff. But I guess what I'm confused about is that 4% that comes in is being treated differently than the 10%. Because I think the 4% coming in needs to be subject to 70% going towards the tourism.
You're absolutely right. And I'm sorry, Barbara, it is confusing. It, for sure, is confusing. And so I don't blame you for being confused about it. And you're absolutely right that the new revenue is subject to the 70-30 split. The one way to look at it is that the 10% we're not going to change. So the 10%, 30% of the 10% goes to roads. That's going to stay exactly the same. So what we're really talking about is how we would spend the additional 4% if voters approve it. So the additional 4% will be we're projecting it could be $3 million. The additional 4%. That is subject to the 70-30 split. So 70% of 3 million will go to tourism facilities and promotions, and the 30% over which we have discretion will be split up in the ways that I described. 80% to the sheriff's office, 10% to emergency management, and 10% to the radio bond maintenance.
So I think I may be hearing, I may, and I may be incorrect here, but I think the disconnect might be that you don't have any of the roads, the money, the new money going to the roads.
Correct.
And is that perhaps what the difference is?
Mhm.
So nothing's going to the roads anymore would be the
No, of the 4%, the new 4%. So the 10% will still go to the roads, but the new 4% would be going to for the sheriff. 80% of that would be going to the sheriff and 20% to something else.
Okay, so on my $1,000 example, a 14% tax brings in $140. $140, 70% of that is $98 that goes directly to tourism. That leaves $42, of which you're saying 80% of that $42 is going to the sheriff's department? Or
That math isn't making sense. that math isn't making sense, Barbara, but what might be helpful is to just split it out rather than trying to calculate 14%, because we're not combining it. The 10% is the 10% and it's staying the way it is. So, and of the 10%, the roads department will continue to get 30. What we're talking about is how we would spend the additional 4% if the voters approve it. So of the additional 4%, that would be split 70-30, and it would be about $3 million. 70% of it is 2.1 million. The 30% is 900,000. So 900,000 is what we would have for the general fund.
Okay.
And of that, you'd have 80% going to the sheriff.
Right, 720,000.
Of that 90, okay.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm still not following it, but I'm gonna think about it forever.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I wish I was a better teacher.
No, that's okay. Be a good politician. That's what we need. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would echo one of the questions that I think I had seen here. What percentage of our property taxes goes towards the sheriff's office budget? That's a good question. And
It
if
is.
you could, if you could maybe you can just send it. You can send it to me at the
I'd be
NCAC and
happy
I'll get it out. And any other questions that you have answered that or have to look up and get back to, you can just send it to us and we'll
Okay.
distribute that or put
Okay.
it on our website for folks. So
I'd be
thank you.
happy to. It's a great
Yeah.
question. And I wish I
Yeah.
remembered, but
Yeah.
the entire, like all of the sheriff's office is funded by property taxes because of course they don't have, they're not revenue generating.
I'm sorry. Can you say that again?
The sheriff's office is not revenue generating. So all
yes,
of
right,
the sheriff's office is funded by property taxes, and I'll just
Right.
get the number for you for the budget.
Okay. Okay, great.
Wyatt Angelo has his hand raised, Mark.
Wyatt?
Is the county going to maintain its current contributions from the general fund to the sheriff's department in addition to these new monies? Or is it going to be using the new monies to supplant their former contributions?
The new monies, they won't be additional, Wyatt. And the reason is because we're short. So the new money, what it'll do is stabilize, it will replace what we're short. And what we're short from the declining timber revenue. So what we want to do is just maintain the sheriff's office at its current staffing and service levels. I mean, ultimately, I would like to be able to grow the sheriff's office, but we're just trying to replace lost revenue right now so that we can be stable.
So this would essentially work towards eliminating the county's deficit by eliminating the funds that the county is now contributing to the sheriff's department?
No, here, okay, I'll give you, without digging deeply into the budget, I can just explain to you that for the last couple of years, the general fund has been short, and we have balanced the budget with money from the beginning fund balance. So that, historically that would happen. Say we'd have a lean timber year, we'd use money from the beginning fund balance, then we'd have a fat timber year and replace it. And so it went up and down like that predictably. But now there's no more anticipation of fat timber years. And so the trend line from now on, according to the state, should just continue to go down. So we have a nest egg that we've been using to balance the budget for the last couple of years, and that's unsustainable. It can't continue. So if we don't replace the revenue, we will have burned through the nest egg within a couple of years, and then we would absolutely have to make cuts because there wouldn't be any alternative. So what we're trying to do right now is just stabilize the budget so that we can quit using the nest egg, which is essentially the county savings account, in order to balance the budget.
Okay, so I'm gathering then that the county was planning on taking money from the sheriff's department budget in order to do that. initially, and therefore, am I not wrong? Am I not right about this?
What, a couple of years ago, there was, I don't know whether or not people remember this, but a couple of years ago, there was discussion about should we cut positions in the sheriff's office in order to balance the budget? And nobody felt good about that. Nobody wanted to do it. Nobody thinks we need less in law enforcement in Tillamook County. So we took the money from the beginning fund balance, which is essentially from savings. So we took the money from savings in order to balance the budget, and we've done that a couple of years in a row now. So what we're saying is that we want to stabilize the sheriff's department budget so that we don't have to take money out of savings in order to pay for it.
Okay, so otherwise the choice is to decrease the sheriff's department budget in order to do that, correct?
Correct, or any other department in the general fund.
Okay, and are all the other departments in the same situation where they have been funded from that forwarding balance that you've been taking the monies from?
The general fund departments, yes, and the sheriff's office is the largest of those. Also in the general fund are Sarah Absher's Department of Community Development, and the clerk's office, the treasurer's office, the HR, the Board of Commissioners. Where everything in the general fund is at risk. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So we have two more questions in the chat. Susan Schomburg is asking, what is the projected budget deficit for the entire Tillamook County budget for the upcoming year?
It was, I'm trying to remember exactly. We had budget hearings a couple weeks ago. And in the end, it was a couple million. So it was the deficit. We ended up with a deficit of a couple million. We took most of the like capital repairs off the table. So you know, you can do that for a while. And we made a commitment to move money from parks, move money from the parks beginning fund balance into the budget, and then replace it with TLT, like I was talking about before. So we cut out, there's savings in the budget from unfilled positions. So we rather than just let departments absorb that savings from positions that were unfilled, we pulled that back into the general fund, which is appropriate. And so we made it up. But there are projections, we have financial projections that I think I started by saying this, that look pretty bleak within a couple years if we don't replace the revenue.
And then Bill Bush is asking, Bill, would you like to ask your question, or do you want me to read it?
Go ahead.
Will the 4% be collected from the incorporated communities, or are they expected to increase their TLT take?
It's countywide, yes. And so the cities establish their own TLT tax, and they contribute 1% to the county. So if the cities, if we increase across the board to 14%, then the cities would presumably also raise theirs. So, and we will continue to receive their 1%. If for whatever reason they chose not to receive theirs, then the county would collect the difference. So say if the city of Tillamook is at 9% or 10%, and they don't go up, then the county would collect the difference between their rate and the 14%. So that's why we anticipate that the cities will also go up, because, you know, they all need revenue also. So I don't think they'll leave it on the table.
So can I ask a question? I'm a school board member in Forest Grove and understand a little bit about budgets, and the term current service level is one we use a lot in education, and that's just continuing with what you have and rolling that over to another year. And that's hard to do.
Right.
So is Tillamook County, I mean, I would guess that it's current service level across the board for everything in Tillamook County for the next 2 years or 3 years.
I'm sorry, repeat the question for me, please.
Yeah, are you talking current service level for your budget for next year? You must be talking about maintaining current service level, not even for just next year, but for the next couple of years. Is that
We are.
correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, yes, it's certainly our
Yeah.
hope.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's see. It's 8:02. Are there any last, we're almost done here, and thanks for all of your questions and for your answers, Commissioner Bell. Thank you. Any other last minute questions before we wrap up here? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Okay, well, we'll close the meeting here, and thank you, Commissioner Bell, for being here, and Sarah for being here, Oregon Coast Host for providing information in the opposition, which came from various organizations. I appreciate that, and thanks for all your questions and comments, and everybody have a nice rest of your evening.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the great conversation and for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bell.
Good evening.